Insha'Allah, God willing. Today we will be reading the first and second truths from the second station of the second chapter of the greatest sign, Ayatul Kubra. This is a truly beautiful lesson in contemplation, tafakkur, that helps us gain the knowledge of God, marifah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Then that restless guest, a person who sees himself as a guest in the world, who never stops in his spiritual journey, who doesn't say this level of faith is enough for me, but always wants to go further, said to his own heart, the fact that people of faith, especially those on the spiritual path, Tariqa, constantly repeat La ilâhe illâ, there is no God but He, remembering and proclaiming Tawhid, shows that there are many, many levels of Tawhid. Iman, faith, and Tawhid, oneness. So is there a difference between Iman, faith, and Tawhid, oneness? Iman means to accept and affirm the existence of God, to accept that there is a creator. Tawhid is the next level up. It means knowing that everything, from the smallest particles to the stars, all plants and animals, whatever exists, is the creation and artful work of one single being. Tawhid means to make one, or unification. It means entrusting the entire universe, from beginning to end, to one single being. For example, a person might believe in Allah, but still hold on to partners, shirks. They might attribute some things to other causes. They might say Allah creates the sun, Allah creates the moon, but then attribute the existence of the earth to other causes. This is belief in Allah, but it isn't Tawhid. To achieve Tawhid, one must remove all partners and hand everything over to Allah. This is a high station, and even it has many circles within it. With each repetition of La ilâhe illâ, one ascends to a wider circle, a higher station of Tawhid. The fact that people of faith constantly repeat La ilâhe illâ shows that there are many levels of Tawhid, and furthermore, Tawhid is the most important, the sweetest and the highest sacred duty, a natural obligation, fariza-i fıtriye, given to us at creation, and a form of worship that stems from faith, ibadet-i imaniyedir. So what is Tawhid? It's a sacred duty. God gave us this duty to see His existence and His oneness. It's also a natural obligation. As humans, our very nature, fitra, needs to comprehend the existence and oneness of God. And it is a worship of faith. Just as there are physical acts of worship, there are also acts of worship done with the mind and heart. As it says in the Isharat al-Ijaz, signs of miraculousness, the sum of the heart's actions is faith. For us to understand God, to comprehend His names and attributes, is an act of worship performed with the mind and heart. This is a contemplative worship, tafakkuri ibadet. As the hadith, prophetic saying, says, 1 hour of contemplation, tafakkur, is better than a year of voluntary worship. And there is no worship like contemplation, la ibadet-i ket tefekkür. The Quran also has many verses encouraging this. Therefore come. To find a new station, we must open another door in this house of wonders, the universe. We understand this in the RİSALE-İ. For example, we read the greatest sign, Ayatul Kubra, and we benefit to a certain degree. Then we read it again, and our benefit increases. A few months later, we study the same passage again, paying closer attention to the words and sentences. And we realize we understand it even more deeply. With every reading, more and wider circles of meaning open up. We've now developed this conviction. The RİSALE-İ will never be finished. Its pages are fixed, but its meaning is like an ocean that expands the more you read it. Because the true Tawhid we seek is not just a marifah, knowledge, based on tasavvur, imagination or concept. Rather, it is tasdeeq, assent, affirmation, or conviction, which is called knowledge and is the result of a burhan, proof. When I was in primary school, we'd go to Quran courses. They would teach us Allah has the attribute of life, of knowledge, of power. We would just memorize them and couldn't go any further. But when we met the RİSALE-İ Nur, we read the truth. Allah has infinite power. And what does it present as proof? The universe. To create such a universe, to administer it, to renew it constantly, what does that require? Power. Therefore, it concludes, Allah must have infinite power. It presents the proof. If such artful, orderly, and balanced plants and animals are being created, then certainly a knowing one is doing it. This becomes the proof of Allah's knowledge. The RİSALE-İ Nur teaches us by showing us the evidence. For example, you might memorize the phrase, Allah is everywhere. But when you read the RİSALE-İ Nur, you think, is Allah's art in this place? Yes, there's a tree here, a bird there. This means Allah's power is manifesting everywhere. To create those arts, He must be present right there with His knowledge and power. It takes the truths we believe in our hearts and presents them in a way our minds can also grasp. And true Tawhid is such a judgment, affirmation, understanding, and acceptance that one can find his Lord in everything and see in everything a path leading to his Creator, and nothing can become a barrier to his presence with God. Sometimes the veil of causes, asbab, is thick and you can't see past it. But with these lessons of Tawhid, all the veils are lifted. The path opens from the artwork to the act, from the act to the name, from the name to the attribute, from the divine function to the essence itself. Otherwise, to find one's Lord, one would always have to rip open and tear aside the veil of the universe. For instance, some on the spiritual path say, close your eyes, enter a cave, cut yourself off from the universe. Why? Because the veil of the universe became an obstacle for them. But what does the RİSALE-İ Nur say? Open your eyes. Look. Witness the artworks and manifestations of God everywhere, and save your faith. We don't need to tear the veil of the universe. The RİSALE-İ Nur makes the universe transparent like glass, showing us the being behind it. So saying, let's go forward, he knocked on the door of majesty and grandeur, kibriya ve azamet. You will understand the greatness and majesty of God, as it says in Isharat al-Ijaz, to perform the acts of worship and ensure obedience to God's commands, the majesty of the Maker must be established in the mind. The moment a person comprehends the greatness of the one who commanded, they begin to fulfill that command. He entered the station of acts, ifal, and artworks, asar, the realm of origination, ikat, and invention, ibda. He saw that 5 all-encompassing truths dominate the universe and self-evidently prove Tawhid. What does this mean? It means the entire universe came from one hand. One single being rules it. Not multiple gods, but one creator. First truth, majesty and grandeur. The first is the truth of majesty and grandeur. Truth means reality. We, as students of the RİSALE-İ Nur, are in search of reality. Since this truth is explained in many places, we will say briefly here. 1. The stars. The one who, at the same instant, in the same manner, creates and commands all the stars, despite them being thousands of years apart. There are billions of galaxies. The Milky Way is just one. In it, perhaps 500 billion stars, and the sun is just one. In this entire vast realm, God's power rules everywhere. Just as a flower is created, a star is created. And He creates all of them at the same time, not one by one. How great must be the power of the one who creates such heavens. 2. The flowers. The one who creates limitless members of the same flower, in the east and west, north and south of the earth. From China in the east to America in the west, he creates the exact same flower. If you ask someone in Japan to draw a flower and someone in America to draw one, would they be identical? Number. But in the universe, they are identical. This means the one who creates them all is the same. This shows that God's power rules the entire world at the same instant. 3. The spring. The one who proves a past unseen event, like the six-day creation, with a present visible event, the spring. We didn't see that first creation, so how can we grasp it? The being who creates the spring before our very eyes is that same being. In the spring, 400,000 species of plants and animals are resurrected. Melons, watermelons, oranges are created from nothing. So how will he create the main resurrection? Heshir. Well, just as he is resurrecting the orange on the branch right now, he will resurrect us in the field of gathering. 4. The 200,000 species. The one who, in 5 to 6 weeks, builds over 200,000 species, with perfect order and balance, without any confusion, iltibas, deficiency or error, altogether and intermingled. If you ask a tailor to sew one suit, he can, but ask him to sew 10 suits at the same time, and he'll mix them up. God creates 400,000 species, countless individuals, and never mixes them up. Tastes aren't mixed up. A person cooks a meal and says, "Oops, I forgot the salt." But in this creation, there is no deficiency, no error, and it's all done together. They are all administered, nurtured, terbiye, provided for, ayeshe, distinguished, temyiz, and adorned, tezyin. 5. The day and night. The one who alternates the day and night, and writes and changes the daily events, yevmiye hadisat. This phrase, daily events, shattered my sense of familiarity, ulfet. For example, our coming here today is a daily event. That means Allah is the one who brought us. He writes all the actions of humans, the sun, the moon, the clouds, the cows, the flies, all in a single day. 6. The thoughts of the heart, the one who, while doing all this at the same time, knows even the most secret, most partial thoughts of the heart and manages it by his will. What does this mean? Our thoughts become a kind of prayer, and Allah guides us accordingly. If we've asked for good things, we find He bestows them upon us. And since each of these aforementioned acts is a single unified act, its actor must necessarily be one, a single, wahid, all-powerful, qadir, actor, with such majesty and grandeur that he leaves no possibility or probability for any shirk partnership whatsoever in any place, in anything, in any way. He cuts it off at the roots. Each of these 6 acts is a whole. You can't separate the creation of all the stars. You must see it as one act. Therefore, one single being creates it. The flower in the east and the flower in the west are the same act. If different creators were doing it, would they be identical? Number. Therefore, shirk is impossible. As it says in Muhakamat, what shows the Maker's grandeur is the sum total of His works. You can't just sit and think about God's greatness. The mirror to His greatness is His complete works. You look at the entire universe, the creation of all galaxies, and say, the one who created all this is Allah, then you understand His grandeur. The beauty of Tawhid is this: small, seemingly insignificant things might be wrongly attributed to partners. But when you think of it as one whole, you place everything in the same circle and give it all to the one God. Since such majestic power exists, a man's strength is known by the weight he lifts. One lifts 50 kilos, another lifts a mountain. God holds up the entire universe, so to speak, and since that majesty is in infinite perfection and is all-encompassing, it is in no way possible for it to allow or permit any shirk that would imply a weakness or a deficiency in that perfection. Sometimes young people ask, if God's power is infinite, can He create a stone He can't lift? These are technically flawed questions. Why? Because a stone He can't lift cannot exist. Can there be a stone that infinite power cannot lift? The question forces you to accept a false premise that is impossible in itself. God can create anything that is within the realm of possibility. Could it be said, Allah created everything, but heaven forbid He couldn't create this one tree? To say that would be to attribute a defect to His power. The one who created the entire universe is incapable of creating one tree? It's absurd. No mind whose nature, fitra, hasn't been corrupted would accept such shirk. Indeed, shirk, because it attacks that majesty, is such a crime that the miraculous Quran states it is unforgivable. Indeed, Allah does not forgive associating partners with Him. Second truth, the absolute and encompassing nature of divine acts. We've read the truth of grandeur. Now the second truth, the absolute, encompassing, and limitless manifestation of the Lord's acts, fariza-i rabbaniyenin, that are visible in the universe. The Lord's acts are visible everywhere, but they manifest without limits, encompassing everything. For example, if it's the act of a flower blooming, it's happening everywhere, not just here or there. And the only things that restrict or limit those acts are divine wisdom and will and the capacity of the recipient. Allah could have filled the entire world with honeybees, but His wisdom dictates how many are needed. An erratic chance, unconscious nature, blind force, lifeless causes, kamit esbab, and chaotic elements cannot interfere in those extremely balanced, wise, all-seeing, life-giving, and orderly acts. Rather, they are merely employed as an apparent veil of power by the command of the all-majestic actor. Now let's analyze these supposed causes. Erratic chance. Can an erratic person do a magnificent job? Number. Unconscious nature. Does a rock or soil have consciousness? Number. Can an unconscious thing produce a work that requires consciousness? Number. Blind force. Do forces like gravity have eyes? Number. A blind force can't produce art. Lifeless causes. An artisan must be alive. Causes are lifeless. Kam-it. Chaotic elements. Air, water, earth. None of these can interfere in balanced, wise acts like an eye or a rose. Can a brain surgeon operate blindfolded? Number. These causes are all blind. So what are they? They are just veils used by the real actor. We will see 3 examples of this truth from 3 consecutive verses in Surah An-Nahl. The bee. 1. The honeybee, verse, and your Lord inspired the bee. Yes, the honeybee, in its nature and its duty, is such a miracle of power, mu'jiza-i kudrat, that the entire Surah An-Nahl is named after it. The bee is a miracle of power. It may be tiny, but it carries an amazing light of marifah. Writing the perfect program for its important duty on its tiny, particle-sized head. This reminds us of today's AI research. Look how many pages of code they write to make a robot do one simple task. Does that program write itself? No. That bee's tiny head has a marvelous program. Who wrote it? The verse says, God inspired, revealed it, placing and cooking the sweetest of foods in its tiny belly. Can we gather nectar from flowers and cook it into honey? Number. But God created the bee's belly to do just that, and placing in its tiny stinger poison without harming itself or the honey. That poison can knock down a grown man, but it doesn't harm the bee, and it never mixes with the honey. This requires infinite care and knowledge. Therefore, since this is done with such precise care, knowledge, wisdom, and will, unconscious, disorderly, unbalanced nature and chance can certainly not interfere. The RİSALE-İ method of proof is beautiful. It shows you the art. It shows you what is required for that art. Then it looks at what you claim the cause is, nature, chance, and asks, does nature have these required qualities? Number. Then it cannot be the doer. It's like solving a math problem. Thus, the manifestation and encompassing of this triply miraculous divine art in countless bees over the entire face of the earth, at the same time, in the same manner, with the same wisdom, self-evidently proves God's oneness, vahdet. 2. The milk factories. Verse, and indeed for you in grazing livestock is a lesson. The second verse is a decree that scatters lessons. Yes, in the udders of mothers, who are milk factories, starting with cows, camels, goats, and sheep. This term, milk factory, just shatters our veil of familiarity. Someone on a bus might see cows and say, look, milk factories. The others might say, what factory? I just see cows. My friend, these are mobile, non-polluting factories. They eat grass and give milk. The places we call milk factories are just bottling plants. They don't create milk. They package it. The real milk factories are the cows, creating pure, clean, nourishing, pleasant, white milk from between blood and waste without mixing them. That straw is first turned into blood and waste, and from between those two, this pure milk is created, a total miracle. And placing in their hearts a compassion, shafaqat, that is sweeter, more precious, and more devoted than the milk itself. What does a baby need? Milk, material food, and compassion, spiritual food. What if there's milk but no compassion? The baby is abandoned. What if there's compassion but no milk? The baby starves. Allah gives both at the same time. If you think about it, from a materialist view, caring for young is a massive burden. Allah transforms this burden with compassion. Would a mother sacrifice her own sleep and food for her child without it? The two complete each other. This requires such mercy, wisdom, and knowledge to know what the baby can digest, that blind forces could never accomplish it. Thus, the manifestation of this wise and miraculous divine art in the hearts and udders of countless mothers across all species on earth, at the same time, in the same manner, with the same wisdom, self-evidently proves God's oneness. If one was a coincidence, what about the billions? Does it all become a coincidence? The sheer number refutes the idea of chance. 3. The date and the grape, verse, and from the fruits of the date palm and grapes. The third verse draws attention to the date and the grape and says, in these two fruits there is a great sign, ayat, for those who use their reason. Yes, these two fruits, standing on dry sand and parched earth, are such a miracle of power and a wonder of wisdom. They are a helwa, sweet factory, and a honey syrup machine, that any person with even an atom's worth of intellect is forced to say, the one who does this must be the creator of the entire universe. Because, for example, on this grapevine are 20 clusters, and on each cluster are hundreds of tiny pumps of sugary syrup. and to clothe each grape in a delicate, beautiful skin, and to place in its soft heart a hard-shelled seed, and to make a sweet like the helwa of paradise in its belly, and to do this at the same time, in the same way, in countless examples all over the earth, this self-evidently shows that the one who does this is the creator of all. These blind, erratic, disorderly, unconscious, and chaotic forces, natures, and causes cannot interfere. They are only employed by the command of the Lord as a veil. Thus, just like the three truths indicated by these three verses, the limitless manifestations and actions of the Lord all testify in unison to the oneness of a single, one unique being, Wahid-i Ahad, the Lord of Majesty.